let's get right into it. Number 10. Birthday candles. It all started with the ancient Greeks trying to get the moon's attention. They would make round cakes to honor Artemis, their moon goddess. Then they'd stick candles on top, hoping the flames would catch her eye, basically trying to get a celebrity to notice you by waving your phone's flashlight at a concert. Then the Germans came along and made it weird. They thought your birthday was basically a VIP party for evil spirits. Your special day was a supernatural Black Friday sale, and demons were lining up for deals. So they started putting candles on cakes as a supernatural security system. The smoke was supposed to float up and blind the evil spirits. Imagine being such a bad spirit that you get defeated by birthday cake smoke. They even added an extra candle called the Light of Life. You had to blow out all the candles in one breath or your wish wouldn't come true. Miss just one, and your wish goes straight to the spam folder of the universe. Scientists actually studied this tradition. Turns out blowing out candles increases the bacteria on cake by 1400%. But hey, at least we're safe from those evil spirits. Number 9. Knocking on wood for good luck. Our ancestors thought trees were supernatural apartment buildings. These weren't your average roommates, though. These spirits could make or break your luck. The ancient Celts and Germans believed good spirits lived in trees. When they wanted to thank these spirits for good luck, they'd give their tree home a little knock, basically leaving a 5-star review for your supernatural landlord. But there was another reason. Evil spirits were floating around like jealous ex-roommates, waiting to hear someone brag about their good fortune. The moment you said something like, "I never get sick," they'd show up faster than relatives at a lottery win. So knocking on wood was basically hitting the mute button on your good news. Different cultures created their own versions of this supernatural game of Simon Says. In Turkey, people pull their earlobes before knocking twice. Italians don't even bother with wood. They touch iron instead. In Brazil, you have to knock exactly 3 times or it doesn't count. Christians later claimed it was about touching the wood of Jesus' cross, but they were probably just trying to make their pagan habits sound more church-friendly. So, yeah, here we are, with our smartphones and space stations, still tapping trees for luck. Number 8. The QWERTY Keyboard. Back in the 1860s, newspaper editor Christopher Sholes wanted to make a machine that could type letters faster than writing by hand. His first design had keys arranged in alphabetical order, like a piano for words. These early typewriters were basically mechanical spiders. When you hit a key, a metal arm would swing up and stamp the letter onto the paper. But if you typed too fast, these arms would get tangled up. Think of 8 kids trying to get through one doorway at the same time. Telegraph operators were some of the first people to use these machines. They needed to quickly decode Morse code messages without making mistakes. The alphabetical layout was causing them to mess up more often. So Sholes started rearranging letters to make things easier for telegraph operators. Then Remington, a gun company, decided to get into the typewriter business. They were selling a different kind of shooting machine, a gun that shot letters instead of bullets. When better layouts were invented, like the Dvorak keyboard in the 1930s, it was already too late. Changing it would be like trying to convince everyone to start driving on the other side of the road. Number 7. Bread on the left, drinks on the right. Back in the day, European nobles were obsessed with table manners. They turned eating dinner into a game of, don't embarrass yourself in front of the king. One wrong move with your fork, and you might lose your head. Literally. They came up with this simple trick. Look at your hands. Make a B with your left hand. That's where your bread goes. Make a D with your right hand. That's where your drinks go. In crowded dining halls, this system kept drunk nobles from mixing up their stuff, because accidentally drinking from the king's cup was a quick way to get your head chopped off. It was basically assigned parking for your food. The funny part is, this rule only exists in Western dining. In other cultures, they just put the food where it fits, like normal people who don't need an advanced degree in plate geometry to have dinner. Number 6. Why surgeons wear blue or green scrubs. Back in the early days of surgery, doctors wore white because it looked clean and pure, but staring at blood on white clothes was like staring at the sun. Your eyes would get tired and start playing tricks on you. Not ideal when you're poking around someone's insides with sharp objects. When you stare at red for too long, then look away, you see a green spot. That's your eyes trying to balance things out. In 1914, one surgeon got tired of looking like he was performing surgery in a snowstorm. He switched to green scrubs, and suddenly his migraines disappeared. Red and green are opposite each other on the color wheel. When surgeons look up from all that red stuff inside you, their eyes can actually relax. Blue works the same way. Plus, these colors hide stains better than white, because nothing says, "Trust me with your life," like walking into surgery looking like you just lost a paintball fight. Number 5. The origin of the RX symbol. Every time you pick up medicine, you see this weird symbol that looks like someone tried to write R while having a stroke. This little squiggle has been around longer than most countries. Back in ancient Mesopotamia, doctors were scratching prescriptions onto clay tablets. These guys were basically the original tech support, but instead of turning it off and on again, they'd prescribe herbs and prayers. Some think it comes from the Latin word recipe, meaning take. Back then, doctors were basically writing cooking recipes, but instead of sugar and spice, it was ground up mummy parts and mercury. Others say it's connected to Jupiter, the king of Roman gods. Ancient doctors thought the planets could heal people. Some researchers think it's actually the eye of Horus from ancient Egypt. According to the story, Horus got his eye ripped out by his uncle in a family fight that makes your Thanksgiving dinner drama look tame. Then the eye got magically fixed, becoming a symbol of healing. The symbol stuck around through history, even when we stopped believing planets could cure diseases, even when we realized eating mummies wasn't the best medicine. Number 4. The foot as a unit of measurement. Back in ancient times, people didn't have fancy measuring tools, so they used what they had, their own body parts. No batteries required, just take off your sandals and start counting. Everyone's feet were different sizes, though, so if you bought land measured by someone with tiny feet, you might get less than you paid for. Imagine trying to build a house where every worker is using their own foot as a ruler. You'd end up with something that looks like it was designed by a drunk architect playing Minecraft. King Henry I of England decided to fix this by making his own foot the standard. His servants would walk around with wooden sticks cut exactly to the length of the royal foot. Number 3. The Sexagesimal time system. The Sumerians from 5,000 years ago created our time system using the number 60. Instead of counting by tens like normal people, they decided to be different. 60 is basically the Swiss Army knife of numbers. It can be divided evenly by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, and 60. Try doing that with 10, and you'll end up with a lot of messy fractions. The Sumerians had this clever way of counting using their hands. They used their thumb to count the segments on their 4 fingers. Each finger has 3 segments, so that's 12 per hand. Then they'd use their other hand to keep track of sets of 12. 5 sets of 12 equals 60. The Babylonians later took this system and used it for everything. They even divided circles into 360 degrees, because it's 6 times 60. These guys were doing advanced math while most people were still figuring out which end of the spear to hold. Now we're still counting time like ancient Mesopotamian merchants playing finger games. Changing it would be impossible, though. You'd have better luck teaching a cat to fetch. Number 2. Naming hurricanes. Back in the day, Caribbean people called these monster storms huracan, meaning evil wind spirit. They thought these storms were angry gods throwing cosmic tantrums. Then the Christians came along and started naming hurricanes after saints. If a hurricane hit on St. Barbara's Day, that's what they called it. It was basically a weather forecast, and a church calendar rolled into one. By 1953, weather scientists decided they needed a better system. They started using only women's names for hurricanes. This went on until 1979, when someone finally realized that maybe being sexist about natural disasters wasn't the best look. So they started adding men's names too. The names go in alphabetical order from A to W. Apparently X, Y, and Z were too complicated for weather disasters. If a hurricane kills too many people or causes massive destruction, they retire its name. Katrina, Andrew, Sandy, they're all on nature's blacklist. Number 1. The standard railroad track width. Train tracks are exactly 4 feet 8.5 inches wide because that's how wide horses were. When they started building railroads, they used the same tools that made wagon wheels. Those tools were set to make wheels that fit into the old road ruts left by Roman chariots. Those ruts were spaced to fit the back end of 2 horses. When George Stephenson built the first railways, he just went with what was already there. He added an extra half-inch for wiggle room, since trains are less agile than horses. Russia went wider, because they thought it would stop invaders' trains. Spain and Portugal went for a different width. Now they need special trains that can change their wheel width at the border. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.